Richard Fuller.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. You know, when I think of the United Kingdom, I want it to be known to be a place of refuge and a place of justice, as well as a place of opportunity for people and a place of freedom. And so when I look at immigration bills over the years, I've always looked to see where is there an issue of moral hazard for what's being proposed and the changes that are being made. And so my eyes were immediately drawn, of course, to Clause 62 and Lord's Amendment 25. And let's just read what is the title of Clause 62. Identified potential victims, etc., disqualification from protection. This clause is replete with moral hazards for whatever actions the government would take. As it happens, I think where the government has got the balance is not right, and I also am not sure that the Lord's Amendment is quite right. And so my request to the Minister, who I have to say has been very able in the way he is managing through this bill, is to continue the conversation with their lordships on this particular provision because of the risks of moral hazard. For example, is it right, really, Minister, that we should continue to include taking away this protection from children? Is it right that we should continue to have a provision that says where someone has undertaken a crime under duress in their past, that they should be liable for the protections to be taken away? The Minister has argued that it is important to define so that the issues of public order can be applied. I see that there's some relevance to that, but why is it so important to rely so heavily on information that relates to an individual's past rather than to the circumstances of the potential risk they pose today? It seems to me that that balance has not been done correctly. I think Lord Coker, the Noble Lords Coker and Lords Randall in the other place, have sought to correct that by trying to get a tighter definition about the risk, to say it's got to be immediate, genuine, present and serious, but they've sort of overcooked it a little bit. Because that's quite a lot of criteria to say. It's got to be consistent with all those criteria. And potentially there is scope for the government, between what they've got in the criteria enumerated, which relies too much on issues of the past and individuals, and the Lord's Amendment, which is perhaps driven a bit too tightly for where these particular protections should be disapplied, that the government can find some grounds for compromise. I certainly hope so.
With that, I'll gladly give way.
I'm very grateful to the Minister giving way. He said that in those cases there would be an assessment of the risk to public order. Has he made an assessment? What proportion of the cases, say in 2020, there would have to be these individual assessments based on the criteria that are presented in this bill? He may not have that information to hand, but I think if later he could reply to the House about that, it would be helpful.
I'm grateful to him for his question, and I recognise entirely the interest that he shows in these matters, and I'm very grateful for the question. I think what I'll do, if I may, is to take that point away and ponder on it, and then perhaps comment on it specifically when I wind up the debate at its conclusion. But I'm grateful for the question, as I say, and I'm very happy to revisit that particular point. For the reason
I'll give way.
To maintain her record of conservative interventions that are somewhat supportive, isn't what she's just said, that 48%, the answer to the question that I posed to my honourable friend, that actually under this bill as currently presented, it will require the Home Office to intervene on half the cases to make these very difficult judgments of exclusion or not exclusion. That's opening ourselves up to an awful lot of potential risk, isn't it?
I thank the Honourable Member once again for his really helpful contribution. As we learn more about county lines gangs and their operating model, we see more and more young people and children who've been subject to the worst exploitation by some of the vilest criminal gangs, and those are the children that are being referred into the National Referral Mechanism. They have been encouraged, exploited, forced to commit crimes as part of their exploitation. And so these are exactly, if we are to bust these county lines gangs, the children that we've got to be looking after, supporting them through prosecutions of their abusers. So thank you very much for that intervention.